We're holding on some Zion middays 67b on the bottom. Thank Hashem that we look like every day and discuss our learning. Chef the basic English. Immediately. We're learning Lili Nishma, Sava Golda Basfar Yaman, and the son of Ben Metzia, and for Shlema, for whoever needs for Shlema. Kav is a volume, so it's like the size of 24 eggs. Too large or small eggs? I'm not sure. I think medium-sized eggs.
Yes, it's around this big. Kav.
Yeah, maybe it's like two dozen eggs in a bucket. You may have to do water displacement and do it again because the eggs don't. They're egg size, egg shape. So what you do is you take a bucket of water, you put eggs in it, and the water that spills out would be the kav. Take a bucket of water, fill it to the top, fill it up with eggs. All the water that spills out of that would be the size of 24 eggs. That you put into a bucket. You measure that bucket, that would be a kav. As if you put it into a bucket, you have all the spaces in the middle. Okay.
Is there an opinion that the eggs change sizes like the olives or not?
It could be. It could be.
Does Korean cheese sizes?
Okay, the Gemara starts off with Pshita. Pshita, it's obvious. That's usually an introduction to a question. Basa the Misalki, in a place where we're talking about here, Ruvain lends Shimon money. Shimon has a property. Property goes to Ruvain as a collateral. And when Shimon pays back his loan, he gets the property back. That's Basa the Misalki in places where if Shimon pays back the loan, he gets the property back. Then, but Ruvain makes up with him. He says, I want it to be that I'm going to lend you the money, and you're not going to get the property back.
Wow.
How does that work with interest?
Does the property give him his collateral?
The property is a collateral. He's not saying you're not going to get the property back. He's saying you're not getting the property back for a certain amount of time. This is the collateral. The collateral will be for such and such amount of years. I'm going to hold the property. Now we discussed before that there were complications with interest because you may be getting back more. So there were different ways of doing this. And of course, the person that has the property has to work the property to be able to take he's maintaining the property. That's part of it, right? So the lender is now maintaining a property. He's putting in the work, and he's also taking the produce. But nevertheless, he's still getting this property. And there was one of the ways of doing it is where it deducts a certain amount per year, just to have that property, no matter how much. Right, we had like a mashkanta the kaisa and mashkanta the surah. We had these different possibilities how to avoid interest, or in some cases it was interest. So, but if he makes up that he doesn't want to be taken out of the property for a certain amount of time, so whatever they make up, that's considered the deal. That's what they made up, even though the minhag of that place was different, but they clearly stipulated that they're doing it differently. However, so that's not a question. But what about if it's a place where the person stays in the lender stays in the property for a certain amount of time, and even if the borrower comes up with the money, so he can't take him out of that property for that amount of time. I assume that they have to make it worth it for him. You're going to go into the property. It has to be for a certain amount of time, or else you're just going to show up right before harvests or something. No, it has to be. They assume that's what's going on. So if it's a place where the lender cannot be removed from the property, however, they make up Bummer Mistalakna. He makes up that no, he can be. Their deal is that he will be removed from the property if the borrower repays the loan earlier. So what's the halacha? Do you have to make a special kinyan to change the custom? The custom is that he can't be removed, and now he's going to be removed. Do you have to make a special kinyan on this or not? So Rav Papa Amar Leitzarach Lemiknaminei. Papa says you don't need to make the kinyan. Rav Sheish Beid Ravidi Amitzarach Lemiknaminei, that you do have to make the kinyan. The Hilchot Tzarach Lemiknaminei, and the halacha is that you do have to make a kinyan. Now,
What does kinyan?
Yeah, usually when you give money, money in property, money is a kinyan for property. And that kinyan is a property, whether it's a purchase or whether it's a rental. That's an important little piece of information. Money, it works for the rental as well, or as a kinyan for a rental.
How is Rav Ashi able to argue with Rav Papa? Did he bring Klipot and Amir from that generation?
The Amirayim in general could argue, not on a Mishnah, but they could argue. And Rav Ashi is like one generation later than Rav Papa.
Papa was second to last generation.
Yeah. Where did we see? What did you see? We had that Rav Ashi was saying something. No, here we have Machlekes Rav Papa and Rav Sheshes Beid Ravidi. Yeah, Rav Sheshes Beid Ravidi. Okay. Do you have any explanation of what exactly is this kinyan and why is there a machlekes about if you have to make a kinyan? What's going on over here with this kinyan? Rashi mentions that it has to. Do we say that it's some sort of agreement that's just words that's not binding? Number 20. I'm going to jump further than that. Let me see this over here, 25, 26. Lender's mere promise may not be binding without an accompanying act of acquisition. They could say it's a kinyan sudar. Tosfos and Rush point out that if the lender made a statement before he took possession of the field, it is certainly binding because the bar gave him a field on understanding that he will be able to redeem it at will. The Gemara deals here. Gemara deals with the case where the lender had already taken possession of the field, with the tacit understanding of following the local custom that did not allow him to be evicted. It's only later that he conceded to allow the bar to evict him by prepaying the loan. At that time, the lender received nothing in consideration of his promise, and therefore it may not be binding unless the bar performs an act of acquisition with him. So sure, if at the time of lending the money, they made up that the property is going to be held for a certain amount of time, and the person will be able to take it back whenever he repays. So then the kinyan was made by the lending of the money. Lending of the money is sort of like it looks like a purchase of the property for a certain amount of time. So that was one of the ways of avoiding the ribis as well. But over here, the way that Tosfos and the Rosh are explaining it is that the money was given already before. Now you're trying to change what's going on. For that, without any transfer of money, for that we're going to need a kinyan. That's the discussion. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, he rejects what Rashi says. Rashi says it's just this Pitume Mili. Remember we said he's buttering him up. Remember that? He rejects that. says that it has to do with the time that this agreement is being made. So, okay. Amar, if he says, Ezel Vaisizuzi. This is the borrower says, hold on, don't eat any more fruits. I'm taking you out of the field because I'm bringing the money right now. So, lo yachal. Okay, he has to stop. He's the guy's bringing the money. He can't stay in the field. Ezel va'atrach Vaisizuzi. I'm going to try and work on it to get the money. So then Ravina says, okay, he's still allowed to eat the fruits. Rav Mari says that no, he can't. He has to stop already.
Can we say it was ribis from to benefit from the fruits that was collateral?
Yeah, but sometimes there was a discussion about how to do it, how to avoid the ribis, if it deducts from the loan. We also considered it a sale, sort of for a temporary sale for that amount of time. And the guy has to work the field as well. There were some details that we had yesterday, and well, the Hilchasa, the Gemara says, is lo yachal. He has to stop, even though he just says that I'm going to try to work to get the money. Tarach. Tarach means I'm going to put in the effort to get the money. Rav Kana, Rav Papa, Rav Ashi, Lei Achli ben Achaisa. They would not do this. They wouldn't eat the fruits of a field that was given as a collateral when the payment was for the year. Like every year that we're in the field, we get a certain amount of money. What means that we're in the field? We deduct from the loan a certain amount of money every year that we're in the field. They wouldn't do that. Ravina Achal ben Nechaisa, Ravina would do that. He would deduct. Now, the problem with Nechaisa is that you don't really know how much you're actually earning because you're deducting by the year set amount. You don't know how much fruits you're really getting. Could be you're getting more than the year produces a lot that year. Could be you're getting more than what you're actually deducting, which is a slight issue of ribis.
Does that mean that I'm change with ribis?
No, that's on the spot. Ribis is only when you have to pay me because you're holding on to the money. The time that you have the money is being paid. If you just exchange one thing for another on the spot, there's no ribis.
No, it takes it goes in a salah and a prata.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just a business transaction. I'll sell you this for $1.50. So I'll sell you $1 for an old dollar for a new, something like that. That's if you would say, let me hold it for the day and I'll give you extra. That would be ribis. Okay. Omar Marzutra.
You're renting his money.
You're
renting his cow.
You're renting his money.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
You rent cows, rent money.
I think the only thing that's wrong with it is the Torah doesn't allow it.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. That's basically what the Gemara is doing, is it's trying to a lot of this Gemara is looking at items at their value or at the item itself. If it's an item and not the value, then it could be permissible. So Amar Marzutra Man Tana demand ben Nechaisa. Marzutra says, what's the reason for Ravina that he's willing to take this risk of possible ribis when he lends money, takes the field, uses deducts from the loan per year time that he's in the field. It could be the field will produce more than that deduction. So it says Well, take a look at what happens with the steachuza. Someone that consecrates a property of inheritance. The Torah tells us how the property is redeemed. For every year, he has to give a certain amount of property. He has to give one selah. So, lav afagav the ka'achal peiratuva. Even though there's possibility that hektish is going to make what's happening over there? Consecrates the property. It goes to hektish. He pays for it. He redeems it back from hektish. He consumes the fruits until Yovel, right? He redeems it from hektish and eats it. He stays in the property until the Yovel, which then it goes back to hektish. Correct? Is that what happens? Show me what it says over there. When someone dedicates an ancestral field to hektish, hektish keeps it and has use of it to sell its produce for profit until the Yovel year. Thereafter, it becomes the property of Kayanim. However, before the Yovel year, anyone can redeem it by buying it from hektish for a price laid down in the Torah. The maximum price is 50 slime, because that would be 50 years. And for each year closer to the Yovel that the field is redeemed, the price is lowered. Actually, then the redemption price for the parcel of land is just over one selah per year, to be precise, a selah and a pundian. Okay. Now the problem is that it says la afagav the kachal perituva. Even though one who redeems the field will eat much produce from it each year, which means that the actual produce. Second. The actual produce of the actual value of the yearly produce that hektish forfeits through the redemption is much more than the nominal fee of just over a selah for redemption. In other words, he's redeeming it for less than what the field is producing. And nevertheless, Amarachmana kaparakli bar bezuzi. He redeems it for one selah. 4 zuzim is the selah. Zachanami leishna. Over here also, the property is being it's not redeemed. It's being we're giving the value of a year for the property at a price that maybe the property is producing more. So we do this to hektish, that will redeem it, even though the property may be producing more. So here also, he's like redeeming the property. The borrower is redeeming the property with this deduction of his debt by taking off from the debt. Okay, so we see that. Yeah.
But like the property doesn't just produce by itself. You actually have to work, right? Do work to. Is that taken into account also?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I'm not sure how exactly it's taken into account. We're going to see later in the Gemara that you do have to take into account the effort that someone does in a business deal. You know, the investor versus the one that's doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
But over here, I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm assuming that when they're giving a value to a year or however it was, if it wasn't like by hektish, that they're taking into account whatever the expenses are and the profits minus the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing is beginning to sound more like a business transaction than a loan.
Right.
Because if it's a loan, he's already got a lien on the property. automatically. But it's beginning to feel like, maybe what he really wanted was the ability to gather the parus.
Right.
I'm not sure what to do with that thought, but
right. No, it's looking like the field is being pawned.
Yeah.
And this guy gets to hold on to it until he comes back with the money. He comes up with the money.
Kind of reminds me of the modern sale and leaseback transaction.
Still has to pay
like a lease. It looks like a lease. So Amanda Asar Amalach, but the one that says that no, you're not allowed to do nechaisa, you're not allowed to just give a set price for the year without taking into account how much that it may be producing more. He says, when it comes to the field, the ancestral field, that is hektish. The Torah says how to deal with that. It says that you have to redeem it for a certain amount. But over here, halvahi, ribis. But here it's not a redemption. Here it's a loan, and it looks like you're taking interest when you're getting more than what you're lending. Okay, but it's not clear, right? It's not ribis ktsutsa. It's not ribis ktsutsa. The real ribis is only at the time of the loan. You make up how much more you're going to pay than the loan. That's the deraisa. But here it's like this avak ribis, right? It's the dust of interest. It wasn't made up. It's not clear. It may not even happen. Remember, it's like it's rabbinic interest. The dust. It's dusty interest. Right. Amar Ravashi says, Amrli Sabi de Masamachse. The elders of Masamachse, that's the place where he lived. They told me that Stam Mashkanta is Shanta. That when you take this collateral, you always take it for a year. That's the default, that it's for a year. But my nafkamina, what's the difference? Why is this significant? That means that you're able to, after a year, you're able to pay up the debt and take the field back. And within the year, you can't pay up the debt and take the field back. Pay up the debt, but you can't get the field back during that year. Okay. Amar Ravashi also says, Amar Sabi de Masamachse, the elders of Masamachse said, I don't know if the name of the place is Masamachse or the name of the place is Machsia, because the word Masa means city. So it's the elders of city Machsia or the elders of
town
of the town. They translated Masa is not the name. It's not a proper noun. Masa is the city of. My mashkanta. Yeah. How do they? It's Mechasia or Machsia. Mechasia. Okay. My mashkanta. What is the meaning of the word mashkanta that we've been talking about? A collateral. The shchuna gabe, that he lives in it. Why do you have to translate it like that? It says Ladina de Bar Metzia. It's significant for Bar Metzia, which means that if the borrower that owns the property, you see, the borrower is giving the property to the lender temporarily, but the borrower owns the property. If the borrower decides that he's going to sell the property, so who is the closest neighbor that gets the first rights to buy the property? There's a rule. You're selling a property, you're supposed to sell it. The first rights go to the neighbors of that property. If the neighbor of this property is the lender that's living in the property, because it's considered like he lives there. That's the chiddush of this translation. That mashkanta means that he lives there. He gets first rights to purchase it. Oh yeah. Amar Rava says, less hilchasa, the halacha is not like a tarshi pupanai. And if you remember what we learned, I think a week ago or sometime last week, that tarshi pupanai, let me just read this. Like Tarshi Pupanai, like your story Mechuznai, like Hakire Narshoi. The Gemara explains. Katarshi Pupanai, what does it mean? The halacha is not like Tarshi Pupanai. Katarshi Derav Papa. This was like Tarshi Derav Papa. What was the translation of the word Tarshi? They say over there, they just write Tarshi. What happened was Rav Papa spoke about his beer, remember? Tarsha.
Asset interest.
Tacit means in silent. Yeah. What Rav Papa would do back in a few pages ago is he would sell beer in, I think, Tishrei, and the person, they would pay him in Nissan, and he would use the Nissan prices, which was higher. And his claim why this was allowed, he said, look, my beer's not going bad. I could wait till Nissan to sell it. And I don't need the money either, but these guys want it, so I'm selling it early, but why should I lose out? I wanted to sell it in Nissan when the prices go up. And their claim, why it was interest, the claim back was that you're only looking at your side of the story. Our side of the story is that if we would have money right now, we would be able to buy it for the Tishrei prices. The fact that we don't have money means that we need to pay the higher price. So the delay in paying is an interest. Is the fact that we have to pay the higher prices because we don't have the cash at hand. So that's interest. That was the claimek. So the Gemara here is saying that we don't paskin like Rav Papa, that had one side of the story, that he's allowed to charge the higher price because he doesn't need the money. The halacha is the other way, that the reason why is they're being charged the higher price is because they don't have the money, and that's an interest.
Yeah. You can say how they do today. The real price is the Nissan price. If you prepay earlier, you get a discount. Huh?
Yeah. That we discussed. We made a difference between a rental and a sale. Remember? We made that difference. Like, when is the real price? So yeah, but theoretically, figure out ways around that. Story mechuznai. How does it work? The documents of mechuzna, of mechuza maybe mechuzna. And the problem is what happened is like this, that they would write these documents. Here we have an investor and someone that would be doing the business. So let's say someone gives merchandise to a merchant to sell for him. So what they do is they estimate how. Let's say the merchandise is worth $100. So the investor says, "Here's $100 worth of merchandise. You go and sell it, and we're going to split the profits." So what they would do is they would estimate what the profits are going to be before the whole deal started. They think, we're going to sell it for 120. Okay, so the profits are going to be $10 each because they're going to split it, the profits between the one that's doing the work and the investor. So in the original document, they would write that you owe me $110. Based on the assumption of how much what they call a projection of how much the profits would be. The problem is, how do you know that it's actually going to sell for that amount? Maybe it's going to sell for less. And that's the way that it's going to sell for 118. So it's only really 9 for each. And you're taking 10. That means you're taking an extra one interest. Because that wasn't half the profit of the investment. So that's not allowed. Amli Marbar Mimler Ravashi Abba Avid Hachi. Marbar Mimler says to Ravashi that my father would do this.
That's basically every venture capital investment. They say, if we get this much money, we'll take a bigger share. You're guaranteed this amount. That's very, very similar to how things work today.
So just take a look at this, and then tell me again if this is what happens with Mar Baravashi. He says Mar Baramemar. He says my father would write that in the document, but then he would adjust it when they showed up and they said, this year we only made 118. So he would trust them, and he would say, okay, so I'll only take 109. Yeah, that's not what they do, right?
You take some risk too as a general partner. Yeah, so yeah, it could be that would be more similar to how they do it. But this part where they say, yo, up to here, this is what is going to be your cut. Anything above this is going to, the junior partner, the people that made the investments are actually doing the work, they're going to get a higher percentage.
So the guy that does the work is going to, if there's more than what was made up originally, then that goes to the people doing the work.
Yeah, that's usually how they do it. They'll take a bigger cut of that greater profit. It's like, oh, up to this amount of profit, you get this percentage. If it's more than that, then we get a higher share. That's like an incentive for the people actually doing the work to do a better job.
The few cases that I've said in the Din Teiros that they pulled me into was usually some sort of investor that was never seeing any return on his investments because the guy kept taking higher salaries. The guy doing the work, saying, well, we need a better car. We have to look like we're doing good business. And there's never any money coming back. And the guy was complaining, like, what's going on over here? It's been already like 5 years. And they keep saying that, no, they're reinvesting the money into the business. And yeah, I guess they didn't work out exactly like when it needs to be, there were some things that in those deals that weren't clear, like how exactly what's considered reinvesting and what's considered profit. When is it called profit? Anyway, okay. So Amar Le Ravashi says to Marbar Meimar, that's all good if the father is around, which is Ameimar. But but let's say he would die. And then those people that were, what do you call the people that are doing the work? Is there a word for that?
Well, I was saying like you have the junior partners and general partner.
The general partner is the investor, the one with the money?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. JP and GP.
The general partner is the one doing the work usually.
Oh, the other way around. Okay.
Yeah.
The general partner. So the general partner is so this is good. What would happen here if the what do you call the investors? The investor. If the investor isn't around anymore to forgive the guys that are doing the work, because then the Yisaimim, the orphans, can't we don't adjust it from the orphans. We always take from we always protect the orphans. So we're going to take whatever it says in the document. See, he was ready to modify the arrangement based on whatever they're going to say. But if he's not around, then we're not gonna modify it for the orphans, because we're going to take the orphans always it has to be what it says. They're not going to be able to forgive that.
Someone owns this property for 20 years. He's had the same tenants there, so they have like really cheap rents. They pass, the heirs inherit, and
they switch it.
Yeah, the heirs are like, oh, I want fair price for the property.
So, the fact that he gave this as an example, Ravashi, that was like a shgaga, like a mistake that goes out from the ruler, and Meimar passed away. Yeah, be careful with words or examples. Okay, that's the end of that story. Chakire Narshoy, what was the third thing over here that we said the halacha Rava says? Rava says the halacha is not like the three things. Chakiri Narshoy, the Kasri Hachi, they would write a chaker was someone that worked in a field and would pay the certain amount, a set amount to the owner of the field. This is as opposed to an aris. An aris would pay a percentage of the produce to the owner, and a chaker would pay a set amount, a yearly set amount to the owner. So they would write the kasviachi, mashkan le planya arya le planya, v'hada chaker minei. Someone would borrow money, and he had a field, so they would take the field, so the lender would take the field as a mashkan, and then they would let the owner of the field, the borrower, take the field back as a chakar, as a person that, as someone that would work the field, and then he would have, like a renter of the field, then he would have to pay a rental fee. Not really renting, but yeah, a certain amount of produce he would have to give to the owner. And who was the owner now? Was the lender, right? So Shimon owns the field. Reuven lends Shimon money. Reuven now takes Shimon's field for the collateral, but then he leases it to subleases it really to back to the owner. And then, so now he's working on it. So the problem is, the Gemara says, when did Reuven acquire the fields? He's the lender, that he can now lend it back and take a set amount of money on the field. Because what it looks like here is that he gives him money, Reuven gives Shimon money, and if you ignore the field here, Reuven gives Shimon money, Shimon owes Reuven back that money, plus he gives him a set price every year because of that rental field. So if you ignore the field, you just see $100 being transferred to Shimon, and you see $110 coming back to Reuven. So if it would really be Reuven's, then we can say, 1 second, how can you ignore the field? There was a separate transaction here. Reuven had a field and he lended him. That has nothing to do with the debt. The debt was $100. This is another whatever. But he doesn't really own the field. So he doesn't really own it. So there's really nothing happening. Okay. But nowadays that they write, that I held on to the field for a certain amount of seasons, and now I'm lending it back, and now I'm leasing it back. So then it already looks like he's the owner because he's already been in the field for several seasons. So that's already something else. And Kadesha Leitinal Delis Blifnei Lovin, and we do this in order not to close the door from people lending money, because just to make it easier on lenders, so we would do this. So Shapardami, this is acceptable. The Gemara concludes Valav Milsi, but it's actually not acceptable. That was Rava saying that we don't allow this. The problem is because it's a determined amount of how much he has to pay. Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure if Rava is saying that last point. Rava is saying that he doesn't accept Chakir Nashay. It could be that's the Gemara that's saying Valav Milsi.
Yeah, this is even more like a commercial transaction, because in a kakira, it doesn't matter where he gets the produce to pay back.
Right.
In other words, if the field doesn't produce enough produce to meet the requirement, he goes and buys it somewhere else. Or he can buy it somewhere else if it's cheaper. He just has to deliver produce. It's really a commercial transaction.
Right. Okay, the next Mishnah is the real modern discussion of investments. It says, you can't set up a storekeeper to sell produce. And the way you would do this would be that the investor would divide his investment in half, but the investor is lending money to, what do you call him? The general partner? The general, yeah, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The general
The junior
partner?
partner is the investor, usually. The general partner is the owner. Okay.
So the investor, what happened is that in the hands of the general partner, it's divided in half. It's divided in half where half of it he takes full responsibility as if there's a loan. That's $100. So $100 worth of produce or whatever that this guy has to sell. Half of it is a loan, $50 is a loan. That means if it gets lost, he's paying back that $50. Even if it's not lost, even if it's an absolute accident, he has to pay $50 back. The other half of it is considered a deposit, something that he's responsible to watch, but it's not a loan. It's a pikadon. So it still belongs. Let's say Reuven, Shimon. Reuven is the investor, and Shimon is the guy that's doing the work. So because half of it is considered still belonging to Reuven, so half the profits of this are going to go back to Reuven because that's his, and the other half, which was borrowed money, is going to go to Shimon. So that's how you make a partnership, and you give extra money back to Reuven. How does Reuven get back extra money? Because part of it was never lent. Part of it was just transferred. Half of it was only transferred, and it's still in the hands of. It's still in the domain of Reuven. Now the only problem is that who's doing the work here is Shimon. So Shimon is giving Reuven something extra, doing the work. And the reason why he's giving that to him is because Reuven is lending him money. The first step, first 50%. So as a reward for lending money, which that's called interest, he's doing the work for on the other half of the other 50%. So that's a slight problem. We'll see in a second how to resolve that. It's exactly the same story. Whether it's you're giving fruits or whether you're giving money to give fruits, to get half the profits. You have to make one slight adjustment into that arrangement, and that is that you have to pay for his work. You have to pay for his work. So it's not exactly 50. It's going to be, he's going to get only like 49%. Because one little thing over there had to go towards his work. You have to pay him as a worker for doing the work. Management fee. The same would apply if there would be a yeah, the same story is that someone has a tarnagolas, a hen that would sit on the eggs. So you would I'm not sure if he's lending the hen. Yeah, let me read how they're putting it in the. One may not commission someone to set up hen to incubate eggs for half the profit. So who owns the eggs? A financier may not supply chicken farmer with eggs to be hatched if the value of the eggs is assessed and the profits or losses are to be shared. In this case, the parties each accept the responsibility for half the value of the eggs. If they break or if the fledglings die, each party suffers half the loss. Half the eggs are a deposit belonging to the financier and managed by the farmer. The other half are a loan to the farmer. Oh, so the financier is supplying both the chicken and the eggs. and this the farmer has to give him back half of the profits, how much it's worth more from becoming eggs into chickens. And then you have the problem over there as well that you have to pay for the work.
Usually they have either like business partners where they go half or a set amount, or if not, they just have to pay the person like hourly. And then there's also the in between where they give them like a low hourly pay and then commission.
Yeah, so over here is it's going to be a low hourly pay, a low daily pay. I'm sorry, I skipped the same thing would be applied to an animal farmer. You also can't do that for half the profits. But you have to, the only way to adjustment to make this allowed is you have to pay for his work plus for the food. But if you don't have, if you just don't take responsibility for this, and in other words, if there's no loan over here, the person doesn't take responsibility as if there's a loan. He just says, look, I'll raise them until they're older, and then we'll divide them however they want to divide them. So then it's just a regular investment, and that would be accepted. I guess we'll leave it over here.
Is this the classic Heteriska?
Yeah. Yeah. This is it's with that nuance though that